There comes a moment when you realize that reality is not what you thought it was. It's not solid, it's not fixed, and it's certainly not outside of you. Everything you have been taught about who you are, about how the world works, about what is possible, is nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion. And the moment you wake up to this, the rules of the game change. Most people will never see it. They will continue living as if reality is something they must react to, something that is predetermined, something beyond their control. They will stay trapped in repetitive cycles, believing they are powerless, unaware that the very fabric of their existence is being woven by their own consciousness. But those who are ready, those who are willing to step beyond what they have been told, will see the truth. Reality is not something you experience, it is something you create. Neville Goddard called it the power of assumption, the idea that whatever you persist in believing becomes your reality. Tesla understood it when he said that if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Ancient mystics described it as Maya, the grand illusion, a dreamlike state where perception shapes existence itself. Science is just beginning to catch up, realizing that the observer effect in quantum physics proves that consciousness does not just passively witness reality, it actively shapes it. The question is, how deep does this go? How much of your life, your identity, your circumstances, your so-called limitations are actually self-imposed? If everything around you is being shaped by your dominant thoughts, by the assumptions you refuse to question, then the only real prison is the one in your mind. And if that's true, the only way to escape is to change how you think. Most people try to change their reality by taking action in the external world. They chase after money, relationships, success, hoping that these things will bring them happiness or fulfillment. But they are playing the game backward. The external world is not the cause, it is the effect. It is merely a reflection of your inner state, a mirror responding to the assumptions you hold about yourself and the world. This is why some people seem to have everything effortlessly fall into place, while others struggle no matter how hard they try. It is why you can push, force, and fight for something and still not get it, because your internal state does not align with the reality you are trying to create. The truth is, you do not need to chase anything. You need to become the version of yourself that already has it. If you assume that something is already yours, if you embody the energy of it, if you feel the certainty of it, then reality has no choice but to shift in response. This is not philosophy. This is how reality actually works. The universe does not respond to wishful thinking. It responds to certainty. And this is where most people get stuck. They try to change their thoughts, but deep down they still feel the same. They still believe in their limitations. They still look at their current circumstances as proof that change is not possible. But the moment you stop looking to the outside world for confirmation and start looking within, the moment you stop reacting and start assuming the reality you want is already yours, that is when everything changes. Think about a time when something in your life shifted effortlessly. Maybe you decided on something with absolute certainty, and it happened without struggle. Maybe you felt completely in alignment with a goal and opportunities appeared out of nowhere. That wasn't random. That was reality bending to your frequency. You are always creating. The only question is whether you are doing it consciously or unconsciously. Most people are living on autopilot, running the same mental scripts, reinforcing the same limitations, assuming the same outcomes over and over again. And because they are unaware of what they are doing, they think reality is just happening to them. But nothing is random. The thoughts you repeat, the emotions you dwell in, the beliefs you refuse to question. These are the blueprints that reality follows. This is how you have been programmed. Society conditions you to believe that reality is something outside of you, that life is hard, that you must struggle to survive, and so you assume this to be true. You expect difficulty, you anticipate failure, you react as if you have no control, and reality mirrors that assumption back to you perfectly. But what happens when you shift? What happens when you start assuming a different version of yourself? What happens when you stop reinforcing the past and start aligning with the future you actually want? This is where the game changes. The mind does not know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. If you persist in a new assumption, your subconscious will accept it as truth. And once that happens, reality itself will adjust. Suddenly, new opportunities will arise. People will treat you differently. Circumstances will shift to match the new story you are telling yourself. It's not because of luck, it's not even because of hard work. It's because the world is simply responding to the energy you are holding. This is why some people seem to outsmart reality. They are not playing by the rules that most people follow. They are not looking at their current circumstances and using them as evidence of what is possible. They are deciding what is possible first, and then reality follows. But to do this, you have to detach from the illusion that what you see right now is fixed. You have to let go of the need for proof before you believe. You have to start trusting in the unseen, because the unseen is what shapes the seen. Neville Goddard called this living in the end. If you want something, you must assume it is already yours. You must stop questioning whether or not it will happen. You must stop reacting to the illusion of lack and step fully into the feeling of already having it. Because the moment you do, reality begins to bend. And this is what they don't want you to know. Society is built on the assumption that reality is rigid, that life is a struggle, that people are powerless. Because as long as you believe that, you will never break free. You will never challenge the illusion. You will never wake up to the fact that you have been the architect of your experience all along. But once you see it, once you understand how this works, there is no going back. You can no longer play the game the way you used to. You can no longer accept limitations as truth. You can no longer pretend that your assumptions do not shape everything around you. You now have a choice. You can continue living as you always have, believing in the illusion, assuming that things are outside of your control, or you can take control. You can start consciously shaping your assumptions, shifting your internal state, aligning with the version of yourself that already exists in the quantum field. Because the truth is, you are not waiting for reality to change. Reality is waiting for you to change, and the moment you do, everything else will follow. Most people go through life unaware that they are repeating the same patterns over and over again. They wonder why nothing changes, why the same problems keep showing up, why, no matter how much effort they put in, they always seem to find themselves back where they started. But the truth is, they are simply reliving their own assumptions. The mind is a projector and reality is the screen. What you assume to be true about yourself, about life, about what is possible, plays out in front of you like a script that never changes. If you believe that life is difficult, you will see evidence of struggle everywhere. If you believe that people cannot be trusted, you will attract experiences that reinforce that belief. If you believe that you are not worthy of success, opportunities will appear and disappear just before you can reach them. And the most dangerous part, you won't even realize you are doing it. Because reality seems real. It looks independent of your mind. It looks like something that is happening to you, but it is not. It is happening through you. Neville Goddard called this the law of assumption. He taught that whatever you assume to be true, even without evidence, will solidify into your reality. Not because of magic, not because of luck, but because reality itself is fluid. It is responding to the energy you hold, to the mental states you refuse to let go of, to the version of yourself you keep identifying with. This is why people stay stuck. They continue being the same version of themselves and expect a different life. But that's not how the game works. Reality only reflects what you consistently assume to be true. But here's where the game changes. The moment you decide, truly decide, to shift your assumptions, reality begins to reconfigure. Not tomorrow, not next year, instantly. You've already experienced this whether you realize it or not. Think about the moments in your life when something changed in an instant. The moment you decided you were done with a toxic relationship and suddenly found yourself in a better situation. The moment you let go of desperation for money and then opportunities appeared out of nowhere. The moment you stopped chasing approval and people started treating you differently. That wasn't coincidence. That was you shifting your internal state. and reality catching up. And if you can do it once, you can do it again, you can do it on command. The key is awareness. Most people assume things unconsciously. They believe in limitations because that's what they've always known. They react to circumstances instead of realizing that the circumstances came from them in the first place. But once you become aware, once you see the illusion for what it is, you can stop reacting and start creating. You can stop waiting for proof and start assuming the outcome you want as if it's already done. You can stop looking at reality for confirmation and start holding the inner knowing that it is already yours. And this is where people hesitate. But how can I assume something that isn't real yet? But that's the trick. It is real. It already exists. Just not in the version of reality you are currently tuned into. You are not creating something from nothing. You are selecting a reality that already exists. Think of it like a radio. There are countless frequencies available, but you only hear the one you are tuned into. Change the station, and you change the experience. Your consciousness works the same way. Whatever frequency you are holding, through your dominant thoughts, emotions, and assumptions, determines which version of reality you experience. This is why people who outsmart reality never wait for evidence. They become the version of themselves that already has what they want, and reality follows. They don't ask how it will happen, they don't question when it will show up. They simply step into the energy of already having it, and the universe rearranges to match. This is where most people fail. They assume for a moment but then check reality for proof. The moment they don't see it, they fall back into doubt, and doubt kills the process. But those who master this, they don't waver. They don't ask if it's working, they persist in the new assumption until the outside world conforms. And it always does. Reality has no choice but to reflect the energy you are consistently holding. Now let's take this deeper. What happens when you do this intentionally? What happens when, instead of living on autopilot, you start choosing your assumptions carefully? Everything changes. Your past no longer dictates your future. Your old limitations dissolve because you no longer assume they are true. Your life begins unfolding in ways that feel effortless because you are in alignment with the version of yourself that already has what you want. And this is exactly why most people will never do it. Because it requires you to let go of everything you thought was real. It requires you to stop trusting what your eyes see and start trusting in the unseen. It requires you to understand that the only reason things are the way they are now is because of the assumptions you have refused to change. The people who succeed at this are the ones who detach from what is and focus only on what they want to experience. They don't argue with reality. They don't fight their current circumstances. They simply assume a new state and hold it until it hardens into fact. And this is what they don't want you to know, because the moment you understand this, you become impossible to control. If people knew how easily reality bends to their assumptions, they would stop playing by the rules of limitation. They would stop chasing things outside of them. They would stop waiting for permission to live the life they want. But instead, most will continue playing the game blindfolded. They will continue believing in struggle, in chance, in randomness. They will continue assuming that they are small and powerless, and so reality will continue proving them right. But you now see the game for what it is, and now you have a choice. You can go back to assuming what you have always assumed, experiencing what you have always experienced, and believing in the same limitations that have shaped your life until now, or you can take control. You can rewrite the script. You can choose a new assumption. You can step into a reality where everything you desire already exists. And the moment you do, everything shifts. Because reality does not happen to you, reality happens through you. The question is, are you ready to outsmart this reality? Because the moment you do, nothing will ever be the same again. Most people will spend their entire lives chasing after reality, hoping that something outside of them will change first. They wait for the right moment, the right circumstances, the right validation before they allow themselves to believe in a new possibility. But those who truly outsmart reality don't wait. They don't seek proof. They decide. They step into a new assumption, and they persist until the world has no choice but to reflect it. This is how the game has always worked. Reality is not something to be figured out. It is something to be commanded. You are not here to obey the rules of limitation. You are here to rewrite them. But to do this, you must stop believing in the illusion of separation. You must stop acting as if reality is outside of you. Every day you wake up inside a construct built by your past thoughts. Every conversation, every experience, every pattern repeating itself is simply a reflection of the assumptions you have been holding onto the longest. If your reality feels like a loop, it is because your thoughts have been looping. If your life feels predictable, it is because your imagination has been stuck in repetition. But the moment you introduce a new pattern, the loop breaks. This is where people hesitate. They assume something new for a day, maybe even a week, but when they don't see instant results, they fall back into the old reality. And by doing so, they recreate it. Because reality is not testing you, you are testing yourself. The shift is instant. The moment you decide that a new version of yourself is real, it is already forming. But reality operates on a delay. It has to rearrange. It has to reflect back the new frequency you are holding. And if you don't persist long enough to see the shift materialize, you revert back to the old state. You undo your own creation. This is why certainty is the most powerful state of all. Reality bends to those who refuse to doubt. It conforms to those who hold a clear vision and do not waver. This is why certain people can walk through life as if they are untouchable. They are not reacting to the world. They are setting the frequency first. So how do you do this? How do you shift from being a passive experiencer of reality to a conscious architect? It starts with choosing your identity. Most people try to change circumstances. They focus on money, relationships, success. But circumstances are the last thing to change. The first thing to shift is who you assume yourself to be. The most powerful way to shift reality is to stop asking for something to happen and start embodying the version of yourself that already has it. There were moments when you simply knew something was going to happen, and it did. There were times when you shifted your focus and reality adjusted. This is not magic. This is not luck. This is the mechanics of reality. What you assume consistently becomes the script your life follows. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If you want to test this for yourself, stop trying to force external change. Instead, spend an entire day assuming that everything is rigged in your favor. Don't just say it. Feel it. Walk through the world as if things are aligning for you in ways you cannot yet see, and watch what happens. At first it will feel subtle. You may notice small synchronicities, random moments of ease, things working out unexpectedly. But if you persist, the shifts will become undeniable. You will begin to see proof of the new assumption, not because you asked for it, not because you worked harder, but because reality had no choice but to adjust. This is how the game is played. Most people will continue chasing outcomes, looking to the world for validation, waiting for things to change before they allow themselves to believe, and they will stay trapped in the same cycles. But those who understand this secret will stop playing by those rules. They will set their energy first. They will decide who they are before the world reflects it. They will embody the assumption of already having what they desire, and reality will comply. It always does. The key is persistence. Most people fail because they assume something new for a moment, but then slip back into doubt. But those who outsmart reality understand that the world is simply a reflection of the frequency they hold most consistently. You don't need to work harder. You don't need to force anything. You only need to hold the assumption long enough for it to become your dominant reality. This is what they don't teach you. This is what society does not want you to know. Because if you knew how powerful your assumptions were, you would never live in fear again. You would never wait for permission to live the life you want. You would never wait for permission to live the life you want. You would simply assume the state of already having it and watch reality adjust to match. This is why the greatest minds in history, from Tesla to Neville Goddard, from ancient mystics to modern quantum physicists, have all pointed to the same truth. Reality is not what it seems. It is a construct, a projection, a mirror of consciousness. and those who understand this do not live by the same rules as everyone else. Now you have a choice. You can continue assuming life is outside of your control, reacting to the world as if it is fixed, believing that change is slow and difficult, or you can step into a new level of consciousness. You can start assuming what you want as already real. You can begin to shift your state before external reality gives you any confirmation. You can align with a version of yourself that has already outsmarted this reality. Because here's the real secret. You were never meant to be controlled by reality. You were meant to command it. And now you know how. So the question is, are you ready to step into your power? Because once you do, life will never be the same again. The moment you truly step into this awareness, everything changes. Life stops feeling like an endless cycle of reaction, and instead it becomes something you direct. The struggle fades, not because external challenges disappear, but because you are no longer bound by them. You stop seeing obstacles as barriers and start recognizing them as reflections of your old self, remnants of the past version of you that no longer holds power. This is where most people hesitate. They think, if reality really bends to my assumptions, why hasn't it changed yet? But that question itself reveals the problem. It is still looking outward for proof, still seeking validation in the external world instead of standing firm in the internal shift. And here's the truth. You will only see the change when you stop needing to see it first. This is why some people seem to shift realities effortlessly. They don't wait for confirmation. They move as if, they act as if, they carry themselves as if what they desire is already theirs. And because they are unwavering, the world reshapes itself to match their frequency. The mistake most people make is thinking that reality creates their state of mind, but it doesn't. Your state of mind creates your reality. The only reason things look the same is because you have been broadcasting the same signal, thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions, believing in the same limits. But what happens when you break that cycle? What happens when you step out of the default programming and deliberately assume a new state of being? At first, it will feel strange. It will feel unfamiliar. Because your mind has been wired for repetition, it has been trained to expect things to be a certain way. But the moment you hold a new assumption long enough, the mind accepts it as truth. And once that happens, reality has no choice but to align. Most people don't persist long enough to see the shift. They assume for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, but when external reality hasn't shifted yet, they revert back to doubt. They fall into the trap of believing what they see, instead of seeing what they believe. But the ones who understand this secret, they hold the frequency no matter what. They don't need the world to show them proof, they are the proof. Their energy, their certainty, their state of being already carries the frequency of the reality they want. And that certainty is what bends the external world. It's not about forcing, it's not about trying harder. It's about deciding that your assumption is real and refusing to entertain anything else. This is how people manifest against all odds. This is how some rise from nothing while others, with all the external advantages, struggle. It has never been about external conditions. It has always been about the internal shift. And the moment you understand this, the world can no longer control you. The news, the negativity, the fear-based programming, none of it can touch you, because you are no longer living by the old rules. You are no longer being swayed by external circumstances. You are creating them. Now let's take this deeper. Once you step into the awareness that you are the creator of your reality, the next step is to train yourself to operate from this place consistently. Every single day you are given two choices. You can either live as the old version of yourself, reacting to the world as you always have, or you can step into the assumption of your chosen reality, regardless of what your senses tell you. Most people wake up and fall into their past. They think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and repeat the same stories in their heads, and so the cycle continues. But the ones who truly shift reality, they wake up and set their energy first. They don't wait for circumstances to dictate their state. They decide what their state will be and hold it, no matter what appears in front of them. They assume success before it happens. They assume abundance before they see a cent. They assume love before anyone shows up. And by doing so, they attract, create, and embody the reality they want before it even arrives. This is what people don't understand about manifestation. It is not about waiting. It is not about hoping. It is not even about trying. It is about being. When you become the person who already has it, reality has no choice but to follow. This is why the most powerful question you can ask yourself is, who am I choosing to be right now? Not what do I want, not when will it happen, not why isn't it here yet, but who am I choosing to be in this moment? Because the moment you decide who you are, everything else falls into place. It is not the action that creates the result. It is the identity behind the action. And this is what people don't realize. If you still see yourself as someone who struggles, no amount of effort will change that. The struggle will follow you because your internal assumption is still the same. If you see yourself as someone for whom success is inevitable, things will unfold in your favor, because reality is simply following your dominant expectation. This is why playing small no longer works. You can no longer afford to wait for external permission to live the life you want. You must assume it, you must embody it, you must hold the frequency until it becomes your natural state. And once you do, the shift is permanent. Because reality will not revert, it will not question you, it will not hesitate, it will simply conform to the certainty you are broadcasting. And at that point you have outsmarted reality. Because now you are no longer a participant in the illusion, you are the architect of it. You are no longer chasing reality. Reality is chasing you. So the only question that remains is, who do you choose to be? Because once you decide, there is no going back. Most people will never realize this. They will live their entire lives believing they are victims of circumstance, that life is something happening to them, that the best they can do is react, adapt, and hope things improve. They will never understand that they are the ones creating it all. Every experience, every opportunity, every limitation, it all begins in the mind. But you have seen the cracks in the illusion. You now understand that reality is not fixed. It is malleable, flexible, responding in real time to the energy you hold, the assumptions you refuse to let go of, the inner world you dwell in daily. This changes everything, because once you become aware, you can never go back to living the way you used to. You can no longer pretend you don't have power. You can no longer pretend that life is random. This is why people who understand this move differently. They are not waiting for evidence before they believe. They believe first, and the evidence follows. They do not look to the external world for validation. They assume reality will align with them, and it does. Because this is the hidden secret of reality. It is a feedback loop. It is not something happening outside of you. It is something reflecting back to you. What you assume to be true becomes true. So how do you use this? How do you take this knowledge and reshape your entire existence? It starts with one decision. Decide right now that you are no longer available for the old version of reality. The version where things are difficult. The version where you doubt yourself. The version where you wait for proof before you allow yourself to believe. That version is done. From this moment forward, you are stepping into certainty. Because certainty is the only thing reality responds to, not hope, not wishful thinking, not trying. Certainty. This is why the greatest manifestors in history, the ones who seem to bend reality in their favor effortlessly, are not people who hope things will work out. They are people who know. They assume their success is inevitable. They assume the right people, opportunities, and outcomes will always align with them. And because they hold that frequency so consistently, reality has no choice but to obey. The only thing standing between you and the life you want is your ability to hold the assumption long enough for reality to catch up. This is why most people fail. They assume for a day, a week, but when they don't see instant results, they go back to the old assumption, reinforcing the old pattern. And so reality loops, over and over again, reflecting back the same circumstances, the same limitations, the same frustrations. But those who outsmart this reality, they do not waver. They hold the new assumption as if it is already fact. They do not look for signs because they are the sign. They do not question if things are changing because they already know the change has begun. This is the energy that bends reality. So here's what you do next. Decide, right now, who you are going to be from this moment forward. Not someday, not when things look different. Now. Who are you when everything is already aligned? Who are you when success is effortless? Who are you when love, abundance, and opportunity are naturally drawn to you? Step into that now. Think like that person now. Feel like that person now. Because that version of you already exists. The only reason you haven't met them yet is because you have been aligning with the wrong frequency. You do not need to force anything. You do not need to figure out how things will happen. You only need to lock into the energy of already having it. And then, watch how reality moves around you. Because reality will always match the frequency you hold the longest. This is the real game. Most people will never play it consciously. They will continue believing that reality is something they have to work for, struggle against, force into place. And so they will continue experiencing exactly that. But the ones who wake up, the ones who understand this secret, live by different rules. They walk into every situation already knowing that things are aligning in their favor. They do not chase because they know they attract. They do not fear because they know they control the energy of every moment. They do not wait for reality to shift. They shift first, and reality follows. And this is where your choice comes in. You can continue living the way you always have, letting the external world dictate your state, waiting for something outside of you to change before you allow yourself to believe in a new possibility. Or, you can step into the next version of yourself, right now. You can decide, without hesitation, that you are already the person you have been waiting to become. You can begin holding that frequency so steadily that reality has no choice but to reflect it. Because this is how reality has always worked. You are not waiting for proof. You are not hoping something will change. You are not asking for permission. You are choosing. You are aligning. You are commanding reality to match the new version of you. And that changes everything. From this moment on, the game is different. Because now, you know the truth. Reality does not dictate who you are. You dictate what reality becomes. And once you fully accept this, once you commit to living this way, nothing will ever be the same again.